everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Van Buren Variety Show. I'm Bob Van Buren, your host. I'm very glad that you're joining us for another discussion, an interesting topic, actually. I want to talk to the people that are watching my show live. Got a little bit of an apology for you, a little explanation. Last week, I did not have a show. A show was planned. I already had a guest planned. He was already ready to talk about the topic that he needed to talk about. But unfortunately, folks, life gets in the way. Received a call earlier that same day from the nursing home. My grandmother is in her late 90s, and she is in a senior care center. Received a call from the senior care center that she's fading, and they recommended hospice care. That night, my family and I, we did put her on hospice care. Honestly believed that it was going to be imminent, what was going to happen for her expiration. She's still hanging on, though. I mean, my grandmother is a fighter. Again, she's in her late 90s. She's not going to go down without a fight. And I can't say I could spend a whole show just talking about her. But, you know, grandmas are special, and mine certainly was. She was there when my parents got divorced. I lived with my grandparents for quite a while. So her cooking, her jokes, her laughter, and just her stories of yesteryear, I'm really going to miss that. So like I said, she's still hanging on. I saw her this weekend. She doesn't talk as much as she used to, but she did recognize me. She called me by name, first and last. And I even showed her some old pictures, specifically one of her and my grandfather from 50 years ago, trying to get, see if there's still fire up there in the mine. She stared at it for a little bit, and finally, her own words, she pointed at herself. That is me. And I was like, she still remembers. And I even had taken the picture away and changed the subject. But later on, she said something about, what about my husband? And I was like, she remembers. So I showed her the picture again. I said, yes, that's my grandpa, your husband. So that was a Saturday. Again, she's not talking as much as she used to. Sunday, she was a little more quieter. She sleeps a lot. So my hope is that she will be comfortable when the Lord takes her home. I'm going to be devastated, of course, when you lose someone that you really, really love. But I know she has a special place in heaven. I have absolutely no doubt about that. She was baptized, gave her life to the Lord decades ago when she was still a young lady. We prayed together last year when she still was coherent. She reiterated her faith that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and died on the cross, and she reaffirmed that she did accept him into her heart. She's prayed with me when we asked the Lord to forgive our sins. So she's got a special place coming, and it's my job now here on earth to live the life that I can do. I can see her again one day in heaven, which she so richly deserves. So to my live audience, I do apologize last week for no explanation, just no show. So I hope you do understand in this time of crisis. So please, prayers for her, my grandmother, and for my family at this time would be appreciated. But tonight we do have a live show. And actually on these lines, we're going to be talking a little bit about what I just talked about in my monologue. Among many things, some of you may have questions about the Bible. Maybe some things you're not very sure about, not very clear about, or maybe just need some more information. And I think we kind of could all use that right now. So I'm going to bring my special guest on right now.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jason. Many of you probably recognize him from his own channel, Not Another Bible Study. If you haven't subscribed to his channel or seen his channel, I highly recommend you like and subscribe to it. It's very good. It's called Not Another Bible Study. And he's the host of the show, and it's a very, very good learning. So, Jason, I appreciate you being here on the Van Buren Variety Show.
I'm glad to be here, Bob. I appreciate you asking me. And hi, Gene. But no, I appreciate you coming, or you bringing me on. Yeah, no, it's always hard when you lose a loved one, regardless of the circumstances. Mm-hmm. But it is good to know that we don't mourn the way others mourn. We know where she's going. We know she's going home. Absolutely. We know that, and again, we know that regardless of how long it takes, we will see her again. And this is it's a time of, it's a pain for us because death isn't natural. We tell ourselves that death is natural, but it's not. It's as man-made as any Twinkie ever was. We weren't originally designed to die. This is every human death specifically is an affront to what God had originally created. And so there is that innate pain. But we know that there is a day when all of that's over. It's ended. And we're coming very quickly to that time frame.
Yes, I believe that.
Where we are going to enter the millennium, and then after that, true eternity. So the parting, I'm trying to remember the name, I forget which poet said it, but they said, parting is all we know of heaven and all we need of hell. It is
absolutely
painful, but we can look forward knowing that we will be with him again. And that's the hope of salvation, which is being with her and all of your other loved ones forever.
Well, while we're on the subject, we'll talk about a variety of subjects tonight, Jason, and to my audience. But while we're on the subject, let's talk about heaven. Again, I mean, there's no way we can know right now what it's like. We won't know till we get there. And so we can only draw on what is written in the Bible about it. We can only draw on. There's been lots of people that have said that they have seen it. You know, we've all heard about the near-death experiences. In fact, sorry, phone's on silent, y'all. And that was actually a spam risk of all times, interrupting my show.
Yeah, Gene, turn down your phone.
But anyway, okay. But there is a movie that's been out for a while, and now some people enjoy it. Some people believe it's true. Some people have discredited it, and some people just see it for the entertainment value. But to me, it's very comforting. I don't know if y'all can see this. It's called Heaven is for Real. I would highly, highly recommend this movie. If you really want comfort of the hereafter, it's basically, without giving the plot away, a little 4-year-old boy. Now remember, he's 4, had a near-death experience, and he claimed that he saw heaven, that he was there. And he was talking about things that there's no way a 4-year-old could know, and in meticulous detail. So I know that people could say, well, he dreamed it, he imagined. I realize that. But to me, Jason, I don't know how you feel about that film, but it gives me hope. And it's a feel-good movie, but it's also something to look forward to. I don't know what your opinion is if you've even seen that film, but I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I have. No, it is exactly what you described it to be. It's a feel-good film. I don't know if the kids saw heaven or not. What I do know is, between what he said, between other people who have been who have been documented to be in similar situations, other prophets, they're all saying the same thing, right? They're all singing from the same tune. So there's nothing in the movie that I would object to or think was wrong. Again, I think the message is absolutely true, which is heaven is real. Now, what I will say is, I think the Bible actually says far more about hell than it does heaven. And I think for this reason, the only word that you need to know about heaven is home.
Yes,
it is
absolutely
home. Everything beyond that is irrelevant. It is simply gilding the lily, because that is what it is. It is being where you're supposed to be. It is being with God. It is being and living within his glory. I think, okay, this is going to sound a little weird, but just give me a second on this.
Okay.
I'm a fan of comic books, as you can tell, right?
Sure.
One of the concepts that is actually sort of expressed there at comics, or this idea of things taking a form for us to even comprehend them, because it's so above us that we would have no understanding of the concept, right?
Right.
Not a new idea. The Greeks have been talking about it, but they do. But comics tend to do it in a very good way, and that's sort of my whole thought on heaven. Is the problem is, I think all the descriptions we get is a dumbed down version of what is actually there. Most people say, I can't describe it. Even Enoch in the book of Enoch, it says, I can't describe this. People talk about colors being colors they've never seen before, colors that don't exist in our plane of existence.
Yes.
They talk about
Yes.
everything having life, and life in a way that it seems like that's more real than this world.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point, a lot of physicists have talked about the idea of multiple dimensions, not the way science fiction writes it, but that our plane of existence is literally the middle plane, but it's actually described as flat.
Okay.
That essentially our plane of existence is flat, and that there are other higher dimensions that are like we live in a 4-dimensional world. There's an 11th dimensional plane of existence.
Sure.
Now, what does that mean? The best metaphor is just to step down. Imagine you're playing the original Super Mario Brothers game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his world is entirely flat. He has 4 directions: up, down, left, right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Imagine trying to explain the idea of a round to Mario.
Yeah.
He'd have he couldn't comprehend
No
the
concept.
idea because his world is flat. There is just what's in front of him. A round doesn't exist in his plane of existence. In the same way, the supernatural world is a dimension that's much higher than ours.
Mm-hmm.
They have a round in a way that is incomprehensible to us. I think the problem is when everyone's trying to describe heaven, I think it's being translated to them in a way that makes sense to them because they're still in their bodies. They aren't actually out of it yet. So it's more now. Does that mean eventually there will be a literal street of gold? I think there is, specifically because heaven is a temporary place. It is New Jerusalem that we spend all of eternity in. That is a physical thing. And we live it in our physical bodies, but God will be there with us. So there will be a physical street of gold. It will be eternal life, an actual life within our glorified bodies.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we live eternally.
Well, let me ask you this. From a biblical perspective, can you name some Bible verses, chapters, or just stories from the Bible that talk about heaven, that describe heaven? I know Revelation comes to mind, but is there any other that speaks out to you that actually describes what heaven looks like, is like, atmosphere, etc.?
Right. There are several, but really I go back to the throne room of heaven in the book of Revelation. I think Revelation has the most, because what we're looking for is what does it look like? What does it feel like? Revelation, the throne room of God, it is a sea of glass. They talk about things like rainbows as crystals. And again, that's the description. And of course we get the description of the holy city. 12, crystalline stones that are its base, each one a different color, marble, single pearls being used to make an entire gate, right? The city is absolutely massive. So I mean, Revelation I think has the most impressive descriptions of this location.
What do they say? There's been some I didn't did you have something else to say?
No, but again, but ultimately what it looks like is less important than what it is, which is home. We know that there are mansions for every person. We know, and again, what does that mean? I think it's whatever you feel comfortable in, whatever you like. But the thing is, it goes beyond meeting our physical needs or what we think we want. It is the ultimate hope of home, that you are where you belong with the people that you belong with, which is all those who are children of God.
Sure.
And that you live within God's glory. That is the only aspect of heaven that really matters. Everything else is just us trying to comprehend, I think, that one fundamental fact.
Sure.
It's home. Okay. Everything else is just us trying to make sense of that idea.
Some of the debates about heaven, and we've heard it from theologians, and I'll tell you what it is, and I'll tell you what my belief is, and I'd like to ask what yours is. There's always been the debate whether when we go to heaven, will we be able to see family members that have already passed on? Will we be reunited? My belief is that yes, you do. That, my grandmother led a very godly life, and she's going to meet her eternal reward in heaven. When it's my time, whatever year, decade that is, I will see her again. I truly believe that. It's not just a feel good. I truly believe that we will see family and friends that have died before us, that have got the reward already. Some say no, that you won't have any memory of that. What's your opinion on that? What do you believe?
So first of all, Gene, the movie you're thinking of is God's Not Dead, the original one.
Yes, I like that movie.
But to your point, it says that we will be known as we were known. We will know. We will be us in heaven, right? It's not like we go and get rinsed, washed, and recycled. We get glorified. We are who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We retain our identities. We are given new names. We are given new. Again, we are glorified. We're given heavenly bodies, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, absolutely, we know who we are. We know, and we will know who our family members are. And I think more importantly, we will understand where we fit in the time in this broader portrait. We'll understand what everyone has ever, the people who lived 1,000 years ago. We're going to be able to understand the sacrifices they made for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the people you're genetically linked to or the people that you knew as you grew up. It's going to be we're going to know and understand people who lived hundreds and thousands of years before us and understand the role they played in our lives and be able to be with them. Again, we have all of eternity to live together. It's going to be forever. But I think ultimately we're not going to be like, man, it took me 800 years to meet up with my great grandmother or whatever. Like, that's not going to be consideration at all. And I don't think we're even necessarily going to have cliques. Like, I think that all washes away, right? Because we're going to be there. But I do think there will be things like roles that we will have. We will have jobs to do. That there'll be things to do. But we have literally all of eternity to do them. That's the thing. But yeah, I think we like when we get there, you look at me like, oh, hey, there's Jason. Now, I'll be prettier if you could imagine such a thing.
I can't even picture that, Jason.
That's the beauty of God, right? We sometimes have to use our imagination. But I will be even more attractive than I am now, as hard as it is to believe. But you will know it's me, and I will be me. It'll just be a version of me that has been perfected and glorified.
Do you think if I'll make it to heaven, that I'll still be trying to interfere with the show, or no?
I don't think there'll be a show, but I'm certain we'll find you something to do you'll probably be interfering with something.
Okay. Another thing, we talk about, heaven, and I will tell a personal story. Now, I have a cousin who died 3 years ago of diabetes complications. But before that happened, when he was getting really bad, and I wish he was still around I wish he was around, period, but I wish he was around to tell this story. So I will tell this story on his behalf. When he claimed he had a near-death experience while he was in the hospital. And while he was there, he saw our great-grandmother. Now, of course, our great-grandmother, when we were born, was already up in age. She died when she was almost 101 years old. But he claimed, and he saw other relatives on each side of the family, but he claims when he saw her, she was young again. She was a young lady. And, but he heard a voice behind him. He didn't see who said it. We can imagine who said it. It said, "It's not your time. You have to go back." He was back in the hospital, and he was feeling all kinds of pain. In other words, he was at peace for a little bit. So I can only imagine when he finally did go, did he see these relatives again? And so that and when hearing a personal experience like that, there's got to be something to it.
It's a universal experience, and that's the thing. I go back to, but just if you just stop thinking about it, why wouldn't they be there to greet you? Do we not do family members not go to greet someone at an airport? Why would that be any different?
Exactly.
I mean, when someone important is coming to you, you go out to greet them. That's just human nature. And I don't think that stops when you leave this world. I think that's exactly what happens. I don't think that it's unreasonable for that to be the expectation. Now, again, unfortunately, and this is where the unfortunate part goes, where a lot of people think, well, okay, so all of my family, maybe not all of them.
That's debatable. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it goes back to you. It's those who submit to Christ. It's those who have been born again who live there. Now, the advantage to that is that means everyone who's born again is your family. So we think about our immediate family. Yeah, I think those who are immediately important to us will be there. But I think all of heaven awaits a soul and greets the soul because they're all family.
I read something else in a book. Because of my grandmother's situation, I've been reading a lot more about heaven. But I read something that was of comfort to me, and I'll get your opinion on that as well. There was a person in a chat room that had asked a question: will we have our memories in heaven of our experiences here on earth? A pastor replied, and this was his reply. I can't recite it verbatim, but his belief was, yes, when you get to heaven, you will remember everything that you did on earth, the good memories.
Yeah.
However, he said, heaven will be such a wonderful place. It'll be so many things to do and so joyous. You'll still have your memories, but you won't be thinking about those because you've got something better in front of you. And I can give an example. Years and years and years ago, I hosted the party of my life. I mean, it was kind of a wild party, but hey, and I still have videos of it, and I reflect on it. But at the time that was happening, when I had multiple guests in there, I had good memories from my school years. I had good memories of birthday parties and Christmases with my family. But during that party, I wasn't thinking about that because I had something a lot bigger and something else going on right then. So not that the memories weren't there, but I was experiencing something that took my mind off of that. And I believe that, Jason. I believe that when we get to heaven, we'll still have our memories here on earth of all the family times, Christmases, birthdays, anniversaries, weddings. But I don't think that we have the ability to think about it, but I don't think that our mind or our body will choose to think about it because we're experiencing something so on a grand scale. What's your opinion of that?
I think we tend to overcomplicate things when we try and do that kind of math. What I will say is, there's no reason to think we wouldn't remember our life. Like, why would we? That's a part of who we are. And if I want to pull up a few reasons to think about that, I go back to the fifth seal of Revelation, where it is broken and it talks about these souls of the martyrs that are under the altar. Right? They clearly remember being wronged and being martyred, and they're like, God, why aren't you going to bring justice on these people for our sake? Like,
how much longer do we have to wait? Yes.
Yeah, I was being.
Yes,
yeah,
I remember that.
I was paraphrasing. So the point is, they remembered what happened to them.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And when you get to Revelation 22, when it talks about how God will wipe away the tear, every tear from their eyes, there's a question of why. Some people try to say, "Oh, that means we won't be able to cry in heaven, and we'll have no tear ducts." No, it means you are crying, but He's wiping it away. Why? Because you do remember. I think you remember the good times. You remember the bad. You remember the pain. I think you're weeping for those people that you've lost who are not coming to heaven with you. I think you're weeping for joy. You are crying. We are human beings. We remember ourselves. We are these things. And I don't even think that history, like our minds won't come up with things that happened in the past. But I do think we'll have a different perspective, right? Like the 3-year-old who throws a fit because you take the candy bar away, right? The kid doesn't have a perspective. It's like your first girlfriend is you never love anyone as much as you love your first love. But when you get older, you understand, okay, hold on. Okay, I was an idiot, right? I did stupid things because I thought that was all there was. Your perspective changes the older you get, the more, and once we pass beyond this mortal coil, we'll have that 11th dimensional perspective on all of reality and on ourselves. And I think more importantly, we will even see the good things that we did were flawed and ugly. Right. Sure. So I think we're going to understand. I think we'll just have the proper perspective on our reality and on our history. And I think and I do agree that I think we're going to be much more interested in looking forward and building something new rather than reliving the past. But that doesn't mean that the people who were important to us stop being important to us.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that we disregard our family or those who've sacrificed for us. We do remember those things and remember those people. I didn't. There really is there's no real scriptural reason or anything any of these prophets have said that would indicate that there's some sort of scrubbing device or something that radically alters our personality. We just get a different. I just think it just seems that we get a better perspective, and we would understand. Hey, we get it. We see why evil is evil. One of the reasons humans can be redeemed is that we were deceived into sin. Like the reason Satan is not going to be redeemed is because he made a choice and he knew all of it. Like he knew what he was doing. That's why when, we in our own human law look at it and say, hey, this person didn't understand what was happening. They couldn't have possibly understood the ramifications. We give leniency on that. That's God. God gives leniency to us because we were deceived into our sin. Well, now sin is here and we have to deal with it. But once we get onto that side, we're going to look back in our lives and be like, man, that was a big deal. Like I did some bad stuff and we're not and the problem is it's not that what we did was as ugly as all the other things, but rather when you get that one speck of red marinara sauce on a white shirt, right?
Yes.
It doesn't matter that you haven't thrown, it doesn't matter if somebody didn't walk up and throw their entire plate of spaghetti on you and then, poured their wine on you and that's why you're dirty.
Yeah.
Just that one speck. And that thing can be seen from orbit.
Absolutely. I got a lot of specs though. So
well, we all do, right? We all do. And so that's the thing is we will understand our sin because we will get to actually see the reality for what it is. So again, it's our perspective that changes. And no, Randy, I won't get mad at you. It's just not as good as the comic. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, this has been a kind of a debate too, back and forth from different denominations, different pastors. I'll tell you my perspective on it. And again, I'm not 100% in concrete belief. There's been the debate and the questions like, okay, in heaven, will animals be in heaven? Some people get really attracted to their pets and they're like, well, I see Fido or Puff the cat, I don't really have an opinion on that. I'm not just trying to bug out. I really don't know the answer to that. I'd like to. So just what is your opinion? Do you think animals will be there or no?
So we know there are horses, but those seem to be divine creatures, right?
Okay.
Honestly, I don't plant my flag anywhere on this one because there just isn't. There isn't sufficient. Now there are indications, right? It talks about the soul of the spirit of a man goes to God, but the spirit of the animal returns to the earth, right? Animals do not carry the same eternal significance as humans do.
They can't sin,
right? Because they don't carry the same eternal significance. But it doesn't mean that they aren't of concern to God. Again, it goes back to it says, no sparrow falls in the sky that God isn't aware of. He's taking care of these things. He cares about. In fact, my favorite scene is in the book of Jonah. It's at the very end when Jonah is lamenting, right? He's lamenting that God didn't destroy the city of Nineveh, and God says, "But there are children." And many animals too. Now, the child is somebody who says who don't know their left from their right. That's a child. He said, but think of the children here, and what about all the animals? God cared about those animals. Now, are animals get eaten? Yes, we're supposed to eat them. That's why they're there. Animals eat each other. It is a cold, hard, and brutal world that we live in, but He still cares for them. He's still tending to them. They matter to Him. So, would there be animals in heaven? Probably. Are they going to be the spirits of the animals that died down here? I don't think I'm not certain that's the case.
Okay. Yeah, I just want perspective.
I don't know. Again, I'm not, but it's like those things. I'm not going to put, if I had to, if again, gun to my head, what do I think? I think animals are transitory creatures. They again, a glorified, it's a bad analogy, but it's the closest. My cell phone eventually one day is going to turn itself off forever. Right? That's it. Now, does that mean, again, what does that mean for animal spirits? Could they go on to heaven in some sort of, world? Possibly. I just don't think that's the case. I think they are transitory creatures that are designed for our enjoyment, but when they die, they return to the earth. They return to whence they came, and they are transitory creatures. They don't have the eternal value of the human soul. We are imagers of God, and that is why we are unique. But it doesn't mean that they are to be treated they are to be treated well. I think that's the one problem we tend to have is, instead of recognizing ourselves as we are superior in a form of authority, but it doesn't mean you abuse those beneath you. You're supposed to take care of them. You're supposed to make certain that they are taken care of well. We don't do a good job of that. We're supposed to tend to the earth. We are not doing a good job of that. We're supposed to be stewards of it. It doesn't mean that you make them that they are something, for something to be less in hierarchy does not make it less worthy of love or being cared for or protected. In fact, the obligation is for us to care and tend for them. We have done a terrible job of that, and that's the problem that I have. Again, whether the creatures are move on to some form of heavenly realm, I'm again little interest. I'll find out one way or the other. There's certain things I'm happy not knowing, because we'll know it's eventually. Like if I never make it to Jerusalem, I'm like, you know what? It would suck, but at the same time, I know I'm going there anyway. So, it's not really anything I would like to, but I'll get there eventually one way or the other. So my thing is, for the here and now, as far as animals are concerned, we have an obligation to them that we're not living up to.
Well, let's get this then. In Revelation, well, actually, when it's in the Gospels, actually, when Jesus said, lo, I can't say verbatim, I go to prepare many mansions for you. If it were not so, I would tell you. Do you believe it's a literal mansion he's building for his followers, or is it a symbolism for something else, like a new body?
So, okay, yes. It's all of the above.
Okay.
Here's the thing, though. We think mansion, we think lifestyles of the rich and famous, right?
Hollywood.
Where it's like, exactly. We got the golden toilet seat over here. We got the 12,000 rooms, and there's a room dedicated for their show. Yeah, exactly. I've actually not done a word study on that one, but I've long thought that that's not really what is meant, right? I think the problem is our idea of mansion is the problem. We're putting a 21st century concept on that word. And it's really more, again, it is about a luxurious home. That's the idea. It's a place it's luxurious, but it's home. That is your home. And it is being prepared for you. But I do think it's also about our glorified bodies. I think it's about the eternity that we step into. I think it was all of the above. But again, specifically for mansions, I don't think we're all going to have, we're not going to have this giant pool, and we're going to be doing, driving Bentleys off of ramps and like that.
Sunset Boulevard.
Exactly. Well, I think that's all. If anything, that's actually our sin nature speaking to us, because it's like, this is what power is. This is what that is. I think the mansion is just, it is luxurious. But it's home. It's where we belong. And I think that's my core thought of heaven is it's just the one place you're supposed to be. Like if my mansion was essentially this room, I got and it's like, well, what's in there? He's like, again, we're going to have bodies. So it's like, well, there's your bed. Here's the clothes that you're going to wear. I would assume there's a way to clean them or whatever. And then there's your art desk, and you can do whatever you want on it. Literally, what else would I possibly need?
Exactly.
As a human being. And it's like your art desk is going to turn into, like, if you want to paint something, it's going to be You're going to be able to paint on it. You're going to be able to sculpt on it, whatever. But again, I go back to whatever it is, it's whatever makes you feel at home.
I like that. That's good. In fact, I attended a sermon at a church. I was visiting this church, and I guess that was bothering me. I kind of let that, like, what happens when we die. But I guess I visited this church on the right day at the right time, because he that was the lesson. It was meant for me to hear it, I guess. But his words, again, it's a nice saying, and I believe it. He said, after our last breath on earth comes your first breath in heaven. And I just thought that is so comforting. I mean, because you've heard people talk about how, they're afraid their spirit just stays there. People think they're dead when they're really not. They're still hearing and seeing. And I guess that's what I was worried about. They said, no, because you're gone. Your last breath on earth is your first breath in heaven. And I truly believe that. And I think it's not just a feel good. I really believe that.
No, I would agree. I think I would absolutely agree. And just to play off with Gene's question, what if the idea of the mansion is each mansion, again, it's heaven. Essentially, when we're looking at New Jerusalem, there are doors, and it would look like an apartment complex, right? Like just a massive, like there's just doors everywhere. But you walk into each door is its own world, right? Like that's the thing, is we don't know we don't really know how this is going to play out. It could just be you walk through a door and it's like Doctor Who, where you've got an entire world and that's your mansion, and it's whatever it is that's designed for you and you alone. But then you could walk out the door, or like the holodeck on the Enterprise, you just walk out and you're back in the rest of the city, right? It could be an entire, and again, the city is massive. We forget how massive that city is. But it could be an entire city full of innumerable rooms, and each room is its own world. Like, again, this is why I go back to, there's any number of ways you could think of this, any number of ways you could explore this. We don't really know. What we do know is it's the one place you belong. And it's the one place where you will always belong. And everyone who's there stays there. You'll never be alone. No one's ever going to leave. You live forever in God's glory and in unity with everyone that you love, because everyone you love is there, because everyone that is there is someone who loves you.
Well, let's talk about one thing about the levels of heaven. I mean, like I said, I've been studying a lot lately. I wish I had been more versed in the Bible than I have, but then I read something somewhere, and again, I don't want to quote something that's not biblical, so I don't know if those are in the Bible, but there's levels in heaven. I don't mean that someone's going to have more privileges, but there's some, like, for example, I mean, Moses. Moses obviously was one of, a huge figure in the Bible. I mean, he saved many souls, and I don't even come near Moses's greatness, as far as what he did. So, but you also
have never driven God to the point of wanting to murder you either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So let me talk about the levels. So, but I read the article that it was not in the Bible. If there's a verse on it, please correct me. But it was saying that even though some people will be at different levels in heaven, in other words, envy and jealousy and resentment is gone. That's a satanic, a devilish thing. You won't feel, even if you're not, you won't feel slighted. Like, hey, they earned that. Is there really different levels in heaven? And if so, kind of just explain that a little bit more.
Okay, so this is where things get complicated. Not really.
Okay, I'm looking for an opinion.
Yeah, well, so that's the thing, is there is a discussion like the third heaven. But the problem is that was their world. So this goes back to one of the things we try and do in the Bible study is make certain we're understanding things from the worldview of the perspective of the people who wrote these lines in the first place, right?
Okay.
You have to understand everything in its original context. And that includes their worldview.
Okay.
For the people of Paul's day, Moses's day, even though that they was separated by over 1,000 years, they still had kind of the same basic worldview.
Mm-hmm.
That you have the earth, which is for them all of material creation. Above them are the heavens, below them is the abyss, right?
Okay.
And the heavens, for them, they understood that there was like high up in the sky where the clouds are.
Yes.
They understood that the stars were and the moon and the sun were above the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And then above that was the firmament. Well, that's the third heaven, is above that firmament.
Okay.
So the firmament, and this is something that unfortunately a lot of young earth creationists, even though I am one, tend to miss is the firmament is above the stars. It is it's above them. It's a lot of young earth creationists will say the firmament was this ice canopy around the earth. Whether it had it or not, the problem is the stars reside under the canopy, under this firmament. The firmament is what separates us from the heavens, or from the heavenly realm. So it is the third. So when he talks about third heaven, he just means in the realm of God. Even that's a bit of a misnomer. What I mean by that is God is truly infinite, right?
Well, sure, absolutely.
Well, if he is actually and truly infinite, and we believe him to be, how can he be in one place?
That's true.
So when we see God sitting on his throne, what are we actually looking at? What we're looking at is an aspect of God that exists for us to communicate with, like an avatar. Our reality, I would argue, is made up within God. He's outside of it. He is supreme in a way that's beyond our comprehension. He is beyond it. The heavenly realm is not necessarily where God exists, but that's where the aspect of God that sits on the throne, that's the heavenly realm, right? That's where the angels are. That's where the supernatural beings naturally reside, is the heavenly realm. That's the third heaven. Now, are there levels to heaven just as the same as there are levels to hell?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
We don't. Well, that's the thing is we don't really know. We're not actually told. It is a lot of conjecture, and now there are worldviews of these things, but we're not really shown there to be independent levels.
And that's why I want to make sure that I read this in a book that I did. I don't recollect this in the Bible, so I didn't want to take the Bible out of context or mislead anybody watching this. So I don't know if it's in the Bible. I have not seen that in the Bible. I was reading a book. I think it's probably speculative. So I just want to make sure I put that disclaimer out there.
Right. And that's the thing. We don't really know. Now, crowns, we are rewarded. I do think we are rewarded for our good deeds and for what we've done on the earth, where there appears to be some degree of hierarchy. But we don't. That's not really mapped out for us. I think the reason for it is we suck, and we get lost in we get lost up in talking about that versus saying, hey, why don't we just live our lives as if heaven were on earth? And what that really means, though, isn't enjoying life, but it means living as if God's command is what matters to you. And this is the dark secret that I think a lot of people miss, and I think we as Christians often forget. God's will, or heaven, is a place where God's will is always done. Always. Hell is a place where God's will is never done. People who do not want to follow God, who do not want to do his will, they're not going to be happy in heaven. That's why they go to hell. And again, hell, even that. So heaven, hell, even these concepts are sort of really dumbed down in our language. Heaven, just like hell, are temporary locations. Eternity is in New Jerusalem. Eternity for punishment is the lake of fire. The lake of fire doesn't even look like it has levels. It's just lake of fire. It's just everyone. It's the big cosmic, dumpster fire, and they just get thrown in there. We go to live in the city. That is the description. There's not really much given beyond that. So I tend to think if it was important, we would have been told. But the idea that there is a hierarchy is clearly there. So We do that. Now, it's entirely possible, though, that the whole hierarchy thing is really just meant for the millennial kingdom, because that's where we're kings and priests.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time frame, we will be given, some will be given nations, some will be given cities, some will be given towns, some may, who knows what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what like the parable of the talents. That's what that's about. Is saying, hey, what we gave you in life, however faithful you were in life to what I gave you, we know that's what you're going to be faithful with in the world to come. So when Jesus is running everything, he's going to have those under him, and that's what situates you there. But New Jerusalem, we don't know. It could be that all that's gone, and none of that matters, and so it just doesn't matter where you live.
Here's
Again,
another.
if you have
Go ahead.
infinite time, if you got infinite time, who cares where you are in a city as large as New Jerusalem? You have literally forever to get somewhere.
Yes. Well, here's another subject, and I have my opinions on this too. I don't believe this, but there are people that believe
Mhm.
that going to heaven, one of the things that determines it, and this is their belief, I'm not knocking anybody,
Yeah.
but we've heard the debate about when you die, burial versus cremation. There are those that say it doesn't matter. There are those that say, no, you must be buried. You must be cremated. So I'm just posing the question for you and our audience, Jason. Does it matter how your final resting place is? Does that matter how you go to heaven or not?
No, not in the least. You can think about it. You've lived this Christian life. You followed God. You have the Holy Spirit. You're doing what God wants you to do. Then all of a sudden, you're in an airplane that gets blown up and you're atomized.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Right. And even if you die and you're given a Christian burial 1,000 years ago, odds are your body still doesn't exist.
True.
Because unless you were buried in certain conditions, odds are you've turned to dust and you have returned to the earth. I mean, so no, I don't think that, whether you're buried or cremated, I don't think any of that matters in the least.
Okay.
So Gene, just to be precise with I don't necessarily think that I don't think there are levels to heaven. Now again, New Jerusalem, or let me be more precise. It doesn't say that there are, so I'm not going to say that there are. I think mostly the idea of hierarchy is more about the kingdom of God during the millennial reign of Christ. I think that's what that's about more than actual New Jerusalem. Now, again, I may be wrong, but I don't see it in the text per se, so I'm not going to impose that idea on it.
Okay. Well, Jason, let me ask you this. There might be someone watching this either tonight or maybe later on, because this is going to be archived for anybody to watch, weeks, months, years later. Someone who's wants to go to heaven. It's a lovely place from what we described. I mean, I want to go to heaven. You want to go to heaven. But maybe there's somebody out there that says, you know what? I want that too. I want to live eternally in peace. And I just have to explain to y'all the one thing about heaven that I've read is it's just eternal peace. There's no worry. There's no stress. There's no more death. It's eternal peace. So if there's someone out there right now that knows nothing about religion, it's completely oblivious, but we're talking about heaven. They've heard about it. They want to go. Okay, what would you tell that person in order to go to heaven when they do leave this earth?
I would tell them exactly what Jesus himself said, that he is the way, the truth, and the life. None get to the Father but through him. It's not sufficient to believe that there is a God. Even the demons believe that, right? It is, you have to, again, it's basically the old-fashioned Romans road. Confess with your mouth that Jesus is the Messiah, that he lived, he was born, crucified for our sins, resurrected on the third day. That God, Jehovah, Yahweh, the name you want to attach to it. Again, Jesus is his son. Yeshua is his son. He is the Messiah. He was born. He came to earth. He was born of a virgin. He was crucified. He was resurrected, and that resurrection is unto life. And that you dedicate your life with you, if you can speak with your mouth, however you have the ability to convey that, you pronounce it, that he is your Lord and your Savior. And then what that means is you have to give yourself over to him.
Absolutely.
Now, what you do after that, again, you should be um, uh, baptized, right, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Dunked versus sprinkled, I think you should always dunk if you have the ability, but the form follows the function. If you're behind bars somewhere and they won't let you out, then some guy with his water bottle literally throwing that water at you, that's a baptism.
Or maybe if you're extremely disabled, if someone's physically disabled.
Exactly. Then sprinkling is fine. If you can, again, whenever possible, to try and replicate what was done in the first century, that's what I recommend. It is clear that this is from the baptism is immersion. So if you can, great. If you can't, it's no big deal. But you do need to be baptized. Now, the baptism isn't what saves you, but it is that public pronouncement. It's one of the
Mm-hmm.
only true, if you want to use the term. I just forgot the word. Catholics use it.
Pronouncement of faith.
No, not that. The word entirely disappeared from my head.
Okay.
Sacraments.
There he
There's
is.
really
Yeah.
only two sacraments.
Sacraments.
That is baptism, and you can call it the Eucharist, you can call it communion, but those are the only two true commands of sacrament for the Christian. Marriage is a sacred thing. There's lots of sacred things, but as far as sacraments go, there's really just the two that every Christian has to individually partake in. But it is, and the thing is, you have to recognize that your life is no longer your own. That this is not the world that you exist for. It's the world beyond. It is a kingdom that is to come, right? And again, that's why you're baptized. It's a public pronouncement. It's not a secret thing. You're stating, this is me. Every Christian, in one degree or another, has to be willing to say, I'm a Christian publicly, because at some point someone's going to want to kill you, because this world has to hate you.
Jesus had enemies.
Well, Jesus had enemies because this goes back to fundamental understanding of the world. Satan was able to offer the world to Jesus because he actually owns it right now. He is all the nations are under his dominion. We see this with Deuteronomy 32. Unfortunately, the Masoretic text has an error on that, but Deuteronomy 32 talks about how humanity was split apart according to the number of the sons of God, or angels, right? So the world is under a different spirit than what it's supposed to be. God is supposed to be God, and he is, but until Jesus returns to bring his kingdom, right now we're under a false king, and that is Satan. So the world should hate you if you represent the kingdom of God, because the kingdom of God is the coming kingdom.
Absolutely.
Every emperor tries to destroy the upstart, right?
Yes.
Satan is no different.
Well, let me kind of reiterate something now for those maybe that's watching this, thinking about, hey, you know what? I'd love to get baptized, pronounce my faith, that gets me to heaven. Let's just make it clear now. Just because you're baptized, unfortunately, that doesn't protect you from sin. No. You may sin again, but of course, you can ask for forgiveness. Is that correct, Jason?
Yes, you can always ask for. Yes, you do ask for forgiveness. I say, you can always. That has the wrong connotation to it. Mm-hmm. The idea, though, in the Bible is very clear. We can be holy. Mm-hmm. We can be Christ in the flesh. We have to, however, die to ourselves to do it. Mm-hmm. That's not an immediate process, but it is a process that you begin, and it is a goal to become Christ-like. We can be perfect, and so that's the thing. Is I think the problem is it's so easy to say, well, no one's perfect, and so you don't even bother to try.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, I didn't mean that, but I'm just saying. Yeah.
No. That's my whole point. Is the
flesh is weak, as he said.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It is a constant dying of ourselves on a daily basis, because that's what we're trying to do, is emulate what Jesus himself did. Jesus did that, and we're trying to emulate that. We're trying to be like him. I use this. We can end on the story. I saw once a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. Comic conventions, but everyone likes to dress up like superheroes and other things and whatnot.
I've seen them.
Yeah, you've seen them. There was this kid, 5, 6 years old, gets separated from his family.
Okay.
And the pictures of him, and there's a guy dressed as the Flash and a woman as Wonder Woman kneeling down. He lost his family, so he went to find a superhero because superheroes help people.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
That wasn't the real Flash.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
wasn't the real Wonder Woman. But the kid just said, I can trust that person.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
When I was, what's his name? Adam Savage did I'm going to try and really sum up a long TED talk he did about cosplay. The thing about cosplay is you're not just dressing up like somebody, you're entering into that narrative.
Sure.
So if you're cosplaying as these heroes, in a manner of speaking, you step into that narrative. In the Bible, we are told to put on Christ. And literally the word is like putting the adjective in Greek is like putting on a cloak. We are to die to ourselves, to be more Christ-like, to seek perfection, because it can be had. Because when we put on Christ, we are cosplaying as God or as Jesus, right?
Right.
We're cosplaying as Jesus. But we do it not so that we can be better, but for the lost souls who just want to find their way home. They want to find their way to Dad. That's God.
Mm-hmm.
They know Jesus when they see him. He's in heaven waiting to return. Until then, it's only us it's us humans who get to cosplay as Jesus. That's what they're looking for. We are supposed to lead them home, lead them to their Father, to Daddy. That's what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
That is ultimately the only cause that really matters. Everything else we're going to build, everything else we're going to do, write, earn, or buy will burn. It will no longer exist at some point in the future. The only thing that you'll ever see on this planet that makes it into eternity are the souls of the people you meet.
Absolutely.
Everything else turns to dust.
Absolutely. It says, lay not aside treasures on this earth. And but heaven is something that I think we all need to pay attention to because, we've read books, we've seen the movies, but I'm sure what we've read, we can't even picture it in our wildest dreams. And that's should be the goal. And so there's a lot of people that, they hear about it, but they don't know what to think about it. And so I hope this has brought some perspective, especially like you said, the streets of gold. I mean, to walk down a street of gold, of pure gold, that's just completely unfathomable. And we've heard people that have gone that have said, like you said, there's colors that there's no such color that on earth that they could even describe. So it's a beautiful place. It's an eternity place. I know that I want to be there, and I want to see my family again. And of course, I want to be, my Lord. And so I'm hoping this gave everyone a perspective on heaven. Do you have anything you'd like to add, kind of about heaven and what's there, and kind of what the experience would be that we haven't covered?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Again, I'm kind of simple about it. We'll get to figure it out when we get there. I think the two things everyone's tried to convey who has seen it is that it's where you want to be because it's where you're supposed to be. I can't, and again, for me, it's the one word home.
Absolutely.
And I think because ultimately that's all any of us really want to where that's the only place we all want to be is home. And that's what home is.
Absolutely. And just to live, in this fast-paced world here, the 21st century, and in this decade, it's just, it's a rat race. I mean, there's deadlines to meet, there's things to do. You've got, dozens of things that are just staring at you in the face, whether it's financial, work, home life, whatever. It's just, but, to me, I just can't even imagine a life of no stress, no worry, no sadness, just perfect peace. I mean, just it's lots of times I'll tell a personal story. Sometimes when I really want to get away, just I'll take a vacation day or on the weekend.
Mhm.
Sometime I'll go down to a lake. There's a lake close to where I live, and I'll just sit there on the picnic table. I won't go fishing. I
Yeah.
just sit there on a picnic table, just watch the water and the breeze go through the trees in my hair, and
Hmm.
see maybe a fish flop out of the water, maybe the ducks. And to me, in my earthly understanding here on earth, that's perfect peace for me. But to
Yeah.
imagine something that's literally, I would say 999 trillion times the peace that I have at the lake, it's just like you said, it's unfathomable.
Hmm. And that's just it. It is unfathomable. And so I kind of joking, people ask me they ask me questions about hell, and I'm like, look, I'm happy to not know and figure. They're like, well, it doesn't bother you if you don't, if you don't know these things. I'm like, no, because we'll know eventually one way or the other. I'd just like to know on this side of the fence.
Right, exactly.
Right? It's like Jesus even said, we sang that we sang and you did not dance. We played the dirge. You did not mourn. Um, at the end of the day, heaven can be a lot of things. What I do know though is the alternative is infinitely worse than here, and this is
Absolutely.
as bad as I want it to get. So for me, it's again, heaven is where God is, and if that means hanging out, in an apartment on Jersey, cool. I don't think it's going to be like that,
Yeah.
but I'd rather be there.
Sure.
But I do know that the worst that again, there's a reason the Bible talks more about hell. Unfortunately, hell is not a place you want to be either. So again, I'm happy to revel. I'm happy to be ignorant of the fine details so long as I show up. I get to learn while I'm there, on the
Mhm.
job training, as it were.
I'm going to put a thing here in our chat room, Jason. I told
Mhm.
everybody, our audience, but I just want to make sure that you like and subscribe to Jason's own channel that he has on YouTube. It's called Not Another Bible Study. Very interesting. Jason covers all topics, and I've watched many, many episodes. It's very interesting, very enlightening. Jason, do you have a schedule for your show, or do you just come at random, or do you have any specific times you come on?
Well, so on Thursday it's 7 o'clock.
Hmm.
Hold on, is it 7 or 7:30? I can never remember. I have it written down somewhere, but it's Thursdays. I think it's 7:30. Maybe it's 7. One of the two. And then Sundays it's 11 a.m. Central
Okay,
Standard Time on both. But so again, if you like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell, you'll get the notification because
absolutely.
I do try and set the notification for those earlier, so you get a chance to be there. But again, Thursdays 7:30 ish. I'll remember eventually. On Thursdays again, Central Standard Time, and then Sundays at 11.
All right. Jason, I appreciate you being here on the Van Buren Variety Show. And heaven's obviously an interesting topic and a place that we all want to
Mm-hmm.
go to. So I'm hoping, in our discussion that we've touched somebody's heart today.
I hope so as well. And that's the joy of YouTube is you never know where this conversation is going to be heard, or who's going to hear it, or when they're going to hear it. And I hope it blesses somebody. But we'll know.
Sure.
We'll know eventually.
Eventually. Well, again, Jason, I hope you have a great evening, and I appreciate you being on the show tonight.
Appreciate you, Bob. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye. And folks, unfortunately, that's going to do it for tonight for the Van Buren Variety Show. I hope you enjoyed the show, learned a lot. Remember that this show is here live every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, where we have a live show. I have a different guest on each time. We talk about whatever they want to talk about, their profession. It could be a hobby. They could have a special talent, other types of special entertainment. So you never know what you're going to get till you tune in. Again, that the Van Buren Variety Show is live every Tuesday evening from 7 o'clock Central and 8 o'clock Eastern. So I hope you enjoy us and tune in for next time. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, because then you'll see the updates coming up and maybe even some special shows that may come up during the week, not just on Tuesdays. So make sure you hit like, and subscribe. Once again, this is Bob Van Buren with the Van Buren Variety Show. I hope you all have a pleasant evening. Good night.